Hi, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining Nutrition Around the World, a platform to share healthy, Instagram-worthy recipes and at the same time visiting different countries virtually. So for today, our chat is recorded. So please note that you can access it afterwards at Health Services website. And you also can access our previous chats on the Health Services website under the Healthy Promotion Events page. I'm just gonna start with a little bit of introductions and then we can dive in with our recipes for today. I am Rose, a Healthy Promotion and Education Coordinator with Health Services at Algonquin College. Jeffrey, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So, hey everyone, my name's Jeffrey. I am a resident advisor on the 4th floor. I'm in room 4083, so feel free to come by anytime. And I'm a student here at Algonquin, and I am in the public relations program and loving it so far. Super glad to be here today.
Thank you so much. Dana?
Hi everyone, my name's Dana. I am the Residence Life Coordinator here at the residence. I am the McDonald House RLC. So welcome to you guys, and I hope you enjoy. And with that, I will pass it back to you, Rose.
Thank you so much. We're also so happy to have the Executive Chef Russell Weir from Algonquin Food Services with us. I am usually so happy to introduce Chef Russell, and the enthusiasm and passion and creativity he brings to the kitchens at Algonquin College is really amazing. Russell has competed nationally, receiving many awards and recognition for his passion and commitment to the culinary arts. His philosophy towards cooking relies on using the highest quality, sustainable ingredients sourced locally where possible. Thank you so much, Chef Russell, for joining us. Hi.
Hi there. Thanks very much for the introduction. I should probably also mention that I'm here at the Marketplace Food Court in D Building, and we're open. And we're also open over at 35th Market Cafe at the residence as well. So we're actually working this time around.
Awesome. So our two recipes for today is mac and cheese and beans, mixture, and lettuce wrap. So both recipes, we're just gonna introduce the destination. So the mac and cheese originates from Italy. And as you see, my background is from Venice canals. So imagine we are there now together and we are touring Venice, the beautiful city. Imagine the streets are the canals. I think it's amazing. It's probably on my list to go for sure. What about you, Jeffrey? What's your background for today?
So, I am currently in Thailand. This behind me is the Grand Palace, also known as the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. It's in Bangkok. It was built in 1785. And usually there's like a few thousand visitors going there on a daily basis just for tours and to pray to the Buddha. No one's actually allowed to touch the Buddha, and I'm just gonna put this back here, except for the kings. So the kings do a ceremonial costume change of the Buddha 3 times a year to represent the 3 seasons. So we have, I believe, I'm not sure which one is which, but it is for the winter season, the rainy season, and the summer season. So yeah, that's the Emerald Buddha.
Amazing. I think we need the summer season Buddha.
Agreed.
Okay, so moving to Chef Russell, we can starting by introducing the ingredients. Thank you, Chef Russell.
Sure. As you mentioned, Rose, we're doing a mac and cheese, which is obviously short for macaroni and cheese. And while it does have its roots in Italy, it basically came to the United States and Canada through the British immigrants, and it has become known as one of the mainstays in something that we call comfort food over here. And I'm sort of paying tribute using the Italian version, but I'm kind of paying tribute to you folks over in residence. And we chose this recipe because it was something that you can do. It's nutritionally good. It's fairly inexpensive, and you can do it at the residence. So we made sure that the recipe was modified to the point where you can do it on a small stovetop. The other item is a lettuce wrap, and that is kind of got its roots in Thailand, which is where Jeffrey is. Thailand, Indonesia, various other places that would use lettuce wraps. But over here, because we have people from all over the world, we like to mix things up a little bit. So I took the traditional sort of Thai lettuce wrap and I mixed it up with some Mediterranean flavors this time around. For a couple of reasons, actually. But one of the reasons was we wanted to make it and keep it in a vegetarian sort of light, and utilizing some of the products that we have readily available here. So what we're going to do, we could make a lettuce wrap with a shrimp if we were in Thailand, or some chicken or some pork, but we're going to use beans today. So we're going to cook some beans. I have a mixture of beans here. I have black beans, red beans, white beans, and yellow beans. And I'm just going to cook them a little bit. We'll season them, and they'll become quite pasty, and they'll make the meat, if you will, of the sandwich. I have a nice pasta here. We call it mac and cheese, and it is a macaroni product, but it's actually called gemelli. It's not an elbow that you would be buying if you bought Kraft Dinner, for instance. And that's another thing about macaroni and cheese. I think that the Kraft company out of Canada at the time really helped to push that into the comfort food zone when they came up with Kraft Dinner. This hopefully will be better than Kraft Dinner. So we have, we're utilizing garlic, onions, we have some cumin, some nutmeg, we have some dried chilies. Over here, we're using fresh lemons, we have plain yogurt, parsley, some bell peppers and cucumber. I have extra virgin olive oil, very important that we're using an extra virgin olive oil. You can see the nice green color there. That's going to have a lot more flavor. It's not something that we would generally cook with, but we like to flavor things with it because it's so flavorful. This is tahini, and tahini is a paste that's made out of sesame seeds. And we have chickpeas. So this item here will make a hummus, which will also help in the lettuce wrap. Over here, I've got cheddar cheese, margarine, flour, a little bit of mustard powder, and some milk. Basic ingredients for the cheese sauce that we're going to use for the mac and cheese. Good? Any questions about any of that? No. So while we do the little bit of work that's involved, I did send packages over to the students that are probably watching today, and everybody's got all these ingredients in their packages. And to help, facilitate the speed of things for you guys, I did make this bean mixture ahead of time, and we put it in a little package for you. And we cooked the macaroni for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Nice, I say. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cook the macaroni, and basically what we do, whatever the quantity is, in this case, in your case, you have a cup. You basically want to have about 4 times the amount of water that you do for the macaroni. Because the macaroni, when it cooks, is going to absorb a lot of that water, and it's going to double itself in size. And if there's not enough water, it'll stick together and it'll become a kind of a brick, which we don't want. There's an awful lot of starch in there. So the water is salted. We put 2 tablespoons of salt into that water, and that'll help to remove that starch as it cooks. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that into the water, and I'm going to give it a bit of a stir. And you can see here already, it's starting to get cloudy. Everybody knows that because everybody's cooked pasta. But that cloudiness is the starch. If there's not enough water, it'll be too cloudy, too starchy, and you'll end up with a mushy product. So 4 times the amount of water. And I'll just leave that on to boil while I go ahead and I cook these beans. In the beans, I'm going to use some garlic and I'm going to use some onion. So I'll do that first, but here in the kitchen, we like to capitalize on our labor, my labor. And I don't like to cut garlic 2 or 3 times. Even though I'm going to use it 2 or 3 times tonight, I'm just going to cut it once. So it might be kind of boring, but I'll be as fast as I can with this garlic. This is peeled garlic. When you buy garlic in the store, you can buy that chopped stuff in oil, which I don't recommend, or you can buy this peeled garlic in some stores. But in most stores, you're just going to buy the raw head of garlic, which is all this is, and it's got skin on it. If we had skin on this, I would do the same thing. I would just hit it and break it and pull the skin off, no problem at all. But I've gone ahead and done that, so we can dispense with that amount of time. I'm just breaking it up because now I'm going to start chopping it. And it's important when you chop garlic that you chop it small and fine. If you don't do that, somebody's going to eat a great big piece of garlic and they're probably not going to find that very pleasant. And so if you don't want the garlic bouncing and sliding all over your cutting board, just give it that little break first, and it becomes easier to chop. And you need to have a knife exactly like this. I'm sort of kidding about that, but it is important to use the right knife for the right job. If you had a little small steak knife, you'd be here all night and you'd never get it fine enough. So it's good to have, they call it a chef's knife. It's really called a French knife. And this is a very versatile knife. It's used for all sorts of chopping, but it's not used for peeling an orange or paring a grape. There's special knives for those. The way I'm working with this knife, they come in various sizes. Some of them are big, some of them are small, and some of them are made with different steel. But basically, I like to find the center point of the knife, which in this case is right here. It's not exactly right behind the handle. It's sort of a little bit towards the blade. And then all I simply do is hold it right there. And then I have a lot more control. I have perfect control of this knife. I can do all this stuff. Whereas if I was holding it back here, I wouldn't have so much control and I'd have garlic everywhere.
I think, Chef Russell, we almost use garlic in most of the recipes, and it's really a good ingredient. Like, it can be used as antibacterial agent, and it has really many benefits.
Absolutely, yes, it does. And it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I do.
When I use garlic, and Rose, I know that in your background, you probably don't feel the same way, but I feel that you must cook this garlic. It's quite strong and quite spicy and lingers for a long, long time if you eat it raw.
Yeah.
So I always like to cook it a little bit. So in this case, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have an onion, and I actually have half an onion. I'm cheap. I'll just peel that. And I'm going to cut the onion small as well. So I'm cutting into it all the way through like that. I'm going to make about 3 of those. And then we'll turn the onion sideways, and I'll make a whole bunch of little cuts like that. And then I'll come back and I'll slice them off. And I'll get some nice diced onion. I won't have to do what I just did with the garlic. Incidentally, I only took my mask off today because I want you to be able to hear me. I'm not always that legible if you can't see me talk. So I'm just going to turn on a small pan here. Take a small amount of this olive oil, which we don't cook with, but I forgot to get the other olive oil, so I'll be cooking with it. Always important when we saute or cook something that we heat the pan and we heat the oil that we're going to use. So we get a good sear. When we put onions and garlic into a pan with hot oil, it's going to what they call caramelize. I'm sure we've all heard of that. And that is essentially searing the outside very quickly, allowing the juices and things to stay inside and the sugars of the product to naturally excrete. If I was to put it in a cool pan with cool oil and heat it up slowly, then it will just simply suck all of those juices and all of those sugars right out of the product, and the product will actually boil itself in that juice, which doesn't give it the same flavor at all. So just heat that up. Notice the size of our stove here. Usually we use bigger pots, bigger pans, because usually we're cooking for a couple of thousand extra people. But I have a little pan, and it's on the stove. It's getting really hot as a result of being too small for the stove. But you'll be able to see the color of that oil. The green is starting to go away, and it's starting to become very transparent. And as we can hear, it's
The
nice and
voice.
hot.
Yeah.
But just because I said we need to have it hot, we don't want it to burn. So we got to stir it a little bit. And can you smell that? My gosh, that garlic smells great when it's cooked.
Excuse me, is that the garlic or onion? It's garlic or
It's cooking.
onion.
You can see the smoke and the steam coming off. It's cooking, but it's not browning, which is a good thing. So now I'll add those beans. These beans have been soaked for 24 hours. So they're full of water, and they've been actually blanched. We do that here because we use beans for so many different things. You can buy them in a can, and they're perfectly fine. But if you do use a can, you need to strain them and get rid of the brine that's in that can. Or you can use the dried product, but you'll have to soak them 24 hours and then boil them a bit. So these are already done. I'm going to add them into the garlic and onions. I'm going to stir them around a little bit. Now they're starting to take on some of that sweet sugar from the onions. I'm going to turn the heat down. I really don't want to burn them. And because of what I want here, which is almost like a paste, I'm going to add a little water. Some of the starch in the beans will mix with that water, and it'll help to make it a thick, pasty product so that we can use it in our lettuce wraps.
So I think Richard has joined us recently, and he asked what's in the pot. It's both garlic and onions. And for the beans, I really like that this is a great source of plant-based protein. And through Canada Food Guide, we really encourage to have plant-based protein, like a quarter of your plate goes to protein, and preferably it should be a plant-based protein. And the other quarter is for carbs. And then half of your plate goes to veggies and the fruits. So I think like today's recipe, both of them fits very well within Canada Food Guide.
Oh, wait. So this is just a video, right? This is a video. All is live.
I'm sorry, was that directed at me?
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
If I've got the stage here, while the macaroni is cooking and the beans are cooking, it's obviously not me that's doing that, it's the stove that's doing that. So what am I gonna do? I don't wanna waste my time, so I'm gonna start preparing some of the other products for that lettuce wrap. And in the recipe that you have red peppers or green peppers or orange peppers, it doesn't really matter, yellow peppers. And we're gonna cut them into strips like this. So we've taken the pepper, we've split it in half lengthwise, removed the seed pod, and then we can cut into strips like this. And as well, cucumbers. So I've taken a piece of a cucumber. That's about as long as I want to go. The cucumber's that long, but I want to go that long. And I'll do a couple of cuts like this. And then I will do the same idea as the peppers. Here.
I love the colors as well, like red, green. It's really satisfying to the eye before the appetite.
I agree. Colors super important. Also in the lettuce wrap, we have, in your recipe, you have a yogurt with lemon juice. So you got to use a plain yogurt. And I've used a creamy one just simply because this is going to be a drizzle, basically a drizzle on the lettuce wrap. So I've chosen a creamy plain yogurt. You can go out there and get Balkan yogurt, you can get Greek yogurt, and it can be very, very thick actually. If you did that, you would need to have more lemon juice. Lemon juice to flavor it and lemon juice to thin it down a little bit. When you use fresh lemon, you notice that I did that. What I'm doing there is I'm loosening up all the little fibers and all the little lobes and things that are inside that are holding that juice. And so now that I've loosened it all up, it's much softer. It's like a ripe melon. And very, very easy to squeeze the lemon into there. And you're going to get all that lemon juice. You'll notice there's basically nothing left in those lobes. I'll just stir that up a little bit. Set that aside for the final product. Now, back to the beans. I'm also going to season them. And depending on some of the other products that you're using in the lettuce wraps or whatever it is you're using the beans for, that's going to determine what sort of seasoning we're putting in there. And in this case, because we're accompanying it with yogurt and hummus, the chickpea product is kind of Middle Eastern or Mediterranean type of flavors, I wanted to put those same kind of flavors in the bean mix. So I'm starting with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, because salt and pepper is our friend. Here I have ground cumin. And the last time when we were actually doing Mediterranean food, we talked about the benefits of toasting the cumin beforehand as opposed to just grinding it and using it. That's not necessary at this point because there are that onions and garlic and great olive oil and everything else that we don't want to lose track of. So we're just scenting it with these spices. This is nutmeg, and this is a chili pepper, ground chilies. So I'm going to put some of that in there as well. And we'll stir it up. See how it's starting to thicken a little bit, which is good. And as the beans break down a little bit, it'll form, and I'll push it a little bit against the side of the pan, and it'll form a pasty product that we can wrap up in the lettuce. And I used to like to talk about the magic of television, but in this case, it's Zoom. And what I've done is I've done that bean mixture a little bit earlier, and I put it in everybody's box. The reason that I'm not going to use this one today to make the lettuce wrap is because it really should be cool, and we don't have time to wait for that to cool. So I have some in here that's already cool, and I made it. So I made it exactly the same way. Any questions about the beans? Everything's good?
I think we're good, yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah, so we don't want to have juice in it. It should be like to end up as a paste, right? Just to be wrapped in the lettuce wrap, right? Okay.
And yeah, and the reason for that is obviously if we're going to wrap that up in a lettuce and we're going to eat it like a wrap, we don't want everything falling out and making a mess on our shirts.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Now, incidentally, this recipe would be very, very nice if we omitted the beans altogether and we substituted them with a nice shrimp or a prawn, seasoned in the same sort of way, or a piece of roast chicken or some steak or some even pulled pork. If we did that, then we would maybe season it a little differently. But the variations are basically endless. But we wanted to keep it relatively healthy and vegetarian in nature. So the macaroni is cooking, almost done. I think I'll start the hummus.
My favorite.
Yeah, I know. So what we have, is chickpeas. This is another legume or pulse, and it's full of protein. I guess you can speak to that in a minute. But again, this also comes in dried form. If it does, we soak them, usually 24 hours, and then we can do a number of things. We can roast them, which is very nice. We can rub them in olive oil and roast them, or we can simply simmer them. These ones have been simmered because we want hummus. If we wanted a roasted chickpea hummus with different flavors, we can do all that. These are simply just simmered. You can buy them in a can, and once again, if you do that, you need to get rid of the brine that's in the can, and it's not a bad idea to give it a rinse as well. So what I'm going to do with this is simply puree it. In your dormitory or wherever, in your residence or at home, you can use a food processor of any kind. You can use a blender or an handheld emulsion blender, which a lot of people have. They come in handy. You simply put this into an old yogurt container, use the hand blender, and blend it up. I have this mixer. It's the smallest one we have in this kitchen. It's pretty good to make like 100 pounds of stuff. But so I'm making a little bit more than what you have in your recipe. Otherwise, I would never be able to make that small amount in this blender. So simply going to put the chickpeas in there. I'm going to take some of my garlic. Wherever I put that. Just pretend I still have that garlic. The tahini that I talked about, which is the sesame paste. It's very strong tahini. If you like sesame oil and the flavor of sesame, you love tahini. We're going to put a small amount of salt.
So like we were mentioning earlier, chickpeas are actually a really, really great source of a plant-based protein, and they actually have a really low glycemic index as well. They're really good in fiber as well as the carbs, and just like I said, the protein too. It's one of my personal favorite plant-based proteins. They also have a lot of calcium, iron, phosphorus, and folic acid. And I actually did a little bit of research on what folic acid was and like some benefits. And it actually helps with nerve and brain function, digestion, and skin, nail, and hair growth, along with other things. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool ingredient. Same with the cucumber, yellow, and red pepper that we're going to be using too. They're really great in fiber, vitamins, and minerals as well.
I'm actually doing exactly what I hate doing, and I'm chopping garlic again because in my haste, discarded the first batch. This particular time, even though I wouldn't be doing this normally, I don't have to chop it up so much because I'm going to put it in the food processor, and that's going to do the work. I like to have my helpers all around me. Got my equipment here, got my stove over here. I don't have to do a lot really. I'm going to blend this.
Those are really like awesome recipes full of nutrients and healthy ingredients. And the best part that are easy to make. As Chef Russell mentioned, like having a lettuce, some veggies, some leftovers of chicken or anything else. And then you end up like having a good and nutritious meal with very little time.
Hi, am I still
You're back
talking?
on.
Hi there. So I've blended the hummus. It's a nice consistency. And that's another thing we can do. We can leave it a little bit coarse and have some chew in there if we wanted, depending on what we were going to use it for. But in this case, it's more of an accompaniment to that bean paste. So I don't want the exact same texture. We want it to be completely different. So I blended it down to a fairly smooth consistency. It's going to be more like a mayonnaise, only vegan, actually. What I didn't do was the lemon juice. So we're going to put, remember we rolled the lemon, we cut the top off, we used some of that lemon juice. Now I'll just use the rest of it. And I'm just squeezing into the lobes with my fingers, and I'm keeping it upright because I don't want the seeds to go in there. So all the juice will just run at the top and into the hummus. Lobes are empty. Give it a quick stir. Yeah, that's perfect. Right, pretty good texture there. What do you think, Rose?
I think it's awesome. Like,
That
I'm
looks
not
amazing.
supposed to try it, but
Okay, the macaroni now. Macaroni's ready. See, the timing is working out fairly well. And I'm going to pour off that water with all the starch that we don't want. When we do that, it's important to give it a bit of a rinse. You rinse it in cold water to get that excess starch off that's still left on there from the cooking process. And I'll just set it aside for now. And we're going to get into making the mac and cheese, or the cheese part.
I think when we say mac and cheese, like it came into our mind that it might be unhealthy, but actually it's really a good and excellent resource of folate and vitamin D and calcium. And it's also a good resource of vitamin A, riboflavin, and vitamin B12 and zinc. So, and usually when we mix it with some carrots, peas, or other veggies, it's becoming like a whole and nutritious meal. So I really like that about mac and cheese. Easy to make, healthy.
And because we're calling it comfort food here, we can get very comfortable with it. There's a lot of things we can do. We can, if we make too much and we have leftovers, and that's hopefully what we want to do, right? We don't want to be caught short. We can refrigerate it, and we can use it again another day. But we're not going to just heat it up in the stove and eat it as mac and cheese. What we can do, because it'll be nice and workable, we can take some of that and form it into a small patty. We can season it with whatever we want. Some people like a lot of chili peppers and things like that. And we can simply fry it in butter or margarine in a pan and eat it as an accompaniment to something else. Sometimes we can actually roll it up into a ball and roll it in breadcrumbs and then actually deep fry it and serve it with a sauce or something. And a lot of people will do that kind of stuff. So mac and cheese is, and if we don't even want to do that, we can take our pulled pork or our grilled chicken strips or a roast chicken leftover from the one we bought at Loblaws or anything and toss it all together, add a little bit of milk to it, put it in the oven, let it bake, and you have another meal, and it's so different from the first one. So that is burn some butter. So I'll just start again. That's because I talk too much. Normally when I'm cooking, I don't talk. If there's any culinary students out there, what we're doing now is we're going to make a roux. And a roux is a thickening agent. It's there's lots of different ways to thicken products, but the roux is an old standby. And it basically is 50% fat. In this case, the fat is margarine, and 50% flour. If we were going to use a chickpea flour or some other kind of flour that was gluten-free, we would use twice as much. But when we're using white flour, we're going to use 50% margarine, 50% flour. And you'll get a paste like this. Going to put it back over the stove and cook it. You can see it's starting to change colors. You can see it bubbling. It's starting to turn white. And the smell, it's starting to smell like nuts. Can you smell that? It's like nuts. If we wanted to get really, you know, we could have put some onions and some garlic in there and it would be smelling absolutely crazy right now. It's not in your recipe, so I didn't do it. So now that I have my roux done and it's cooked, I'm going to add milk. This is 2% milk. I would not recommend skim milk. It won't be able to withstand that heat. And 2% is about as low as you can go. So I've added it in there. I'm using a whisk and stirring it into that roux. I don't have to use a whisk. I could use a spoon. If you don't have one, you can use a spoon. I prefer to use one because I do have one. And as that comes up to a bit of a boil, it's going to thicken. The roux is going to become, you can actually see it thickening now. You can see you can see it around the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Now, cheese. We're going to incorporate some cheese into this sauce. We're going to put a little at a time. We're going to whisk it in. And the sauce has got to be a little bit thick in order to hold that cheese. If you just put that cheese into milk, it would melt into globs on the bottom of your pot and it wouldn't do you any good at all. So this is getting quite thick. Add some more cheese. And because I like cheese, I'm just going to put it all in. Garlic, I have to say garlic is really good at this point. I'm just going to put a little extra water in here because I put so much cheese. It's gotten a little bit too thick. We have a friend, salt. We don't use a lot because we're trying to stay healthy, but just a little bit of salt. And the reason you don't really need it for the sauce because the cheese has got enough in it. But now we're going to add that pasta, which is all starch, and it's going to absorb a lot of that salt. At this point, you could serve, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would want really those flavors to meld a little bit. So in your residence over there, you don't have an oven. So I would, at this point, just sort of put it on the side, make whatever it is I'm going to eat with the mac and cheese. If I'm eating bread or if I'm having some vegetables or something like that, I would concentrate on that and let this just sit here for a little while. And if you did have an oven, it would be a great time to put it into a casserole dish Put a little Parmesan cheese, some fresh Parmesan, maybe a little bit of fine breadcrumbs, and pop it in the oven for 15 minutes and bake it. That gives you a whole different flavor profile. But this is fine, and I'm gonna prove it to you. I'm actually gonna taste it.
Wow.
Just gonna try it. Guess what? Awesome. A little bit of a garnish or something, just to give it a little bit of a profile. And you have some mac and cheese.
Wow.
At the end of the day, if you don't finish it, like I said, put it in, wrap it up, put it in the fridge. Tomorrow you can make a little patty and saute that. But if you saute it, what do you have to do? You have to make the pan hot, and the fat that you're cooking in, it has to be hot. Or you can roll it into breadcrumbs and you can deep fry it. Or you could add some stuff to it. Or you feel like doing. So that's the mac and cheese. Any questions on that one?
If anyone has a question, please chat channel, and we would love to answer your questions.
Lettuce wraps. We can use a variety of different lettuces. Typically, we use a Boston lettuce or bib lettuce or butter lettuce, which I actually bought for today. But the product that we got was too crisp, and they weren't going to make good wraps because they just break and break in your hand. So I chose to use romaine today.
Mm-hmm.
But I would use a Boston lettuce out of California, hydroponically grown one. The local product we have right now wasn't exactly the right one. So this romaine is going to be perfectly fine. You have a spine down the center. It's good, but you need to break it. So we just press on it so that it doesn't break our wrap when we roll it. I'm going to use the bean mixture that we made. And you can see the consistency here. Fairly stiff. A few cucumbers. A few peppers. And always nice to have a little bit of parsley inside. Gives you that extra textural thing, and it has a refreshing flavor. Yogurt, the plain yogurt with a lemon in it, we'll just drizzle a little bit across here. And
Speaking of that parsley, by the way, it has some really great nutrients, including vitamin K and vitamin C. And it actually supports bone health, and it's super rich in antioxidants as well. Just a fun fact.
Good to know, eh? And it doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good.
Tastes amazing too.
People use it as a palate cleanser. You can clean out your taste buds, get ready for the next course. A bit of the yogurt.
So Chef, did we use tahini sauce, or it's on top, not inside?
Well, yeah, you could. Sure, absolutely you could. Although there's a fair bit of tahini in the hummus itself.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And if you were going to be substituting the beans with a meat or something, the yogurt is usually probably preferable. If you had a nice piece of lettuce, that nice Boston that I was talking about, you could have folded the ends in. But it's not bad. And I can try this one too. Crazy good. Crazy. If we wanted to serve it, to be sure I don't take the one that I took a bite of. And we could just do something like that. There you have it. That's a nice lunch. It's an early afternoon dinner. The only thing about this one is you really don't want to wrap that up and put it back in your fridge. You want to eat it. All of your ingredients are perfectly good to use in other ways afterwards if you don't use them all in the wraps. But once you've wrapped them up in the lettuce, you got to eat it. The lettuce will be pretty bad if you don't. Any questions on those? No?
I think those are awesome. Like the presentation is awesome as well. And I think it's so good, like healthy in a timely manner, 2 recipes, like it's so good. Thank you so much.
50 minutes. 50 minutes, 2 recipes. In fact, actually, they might complement one another, actually. You could eat the lettuce wraps as an appetizer, have a nice glass of water, and then try the macaroni and cheese for dinner.
It's also something that like I know that I personally wouldn't just make this on my own. So it's super cool to like learn how to make it and spice up your meals a little bit. So I appreciate this. It's super awesome.
Good. I should say also that the like lettuce wraps, you can use anything you've got in your fridge. You can wrap it up. Just think about flavors, think about harmony between some of the flavors, and wrap them up. Have yourself a sandwich. It's no bread, very healthy.
So Chef Russell, in this recipe in specific, if we wanna use the chicken, can we remove the beans mixture and then insert the roasted chicken instead? Okay.
Yeah. 100%, yeah. You can definitely easily do that. And all of these same flavors would work just as well. With the hummus and the yogurt, would be a beautiful wrap, actually. And you know, I would recommend if you were going to use chicken, you just go to Loblaws across the road there and buy one of those $10 or $11 roasted chickens. You can serve about 5 people with one of those if you did this with it.
Yeah, a great idea. And maybe like for the mac and cheese, as you said, just we can make a big portion and then save it like for next day, and the ideas that you have suggested. Like I like the idea of the balls and then rolling them up and then just heating them with an air fryer or something like that. It's really awesome. Yeah.
You could toss in any of those leftover pieces of chicken from yesterday's roasted chicken. You could toss that in with the macaroni and cheese too, and it would be quite good.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Do we have any questions from our participants before we end our session? Thank you so much, everyone.
Anybody, just sorry, last thing, if anybody, maybe Rose, you could post my email address. If anybody wants to chat a little bit further about those recipes, I could answer an email anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chef Russell. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Jeffrey. Like I'll give you a final word, Jeffrey and Dana, if you wanna have final words.
Yeah, just like thank you so much. This was super cool. Got to learn a few new things. Got to really realize what I was actually eating with the ingredients. So yeah, super awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to say thank you as well. I really appreciate it. I wish I had events like this when I was a student. You guys are very, very lucky. I'm super jealous. I was a student at one point and it was not near as amazing as this. So thank you guys so much for helping us put this on. I am going to put an event feedback survey in the chat. If you guys could please fill that out for me, that would be fantastic. Just helps us know like what you want to see in the future and how much did you enjoy our event and if there's anything we can do better. So I'd really appreciate that. And a big thank you to Rose again for helping me out, and Chef Russell. You guys are fabulous individuals. With that said, I'll pass it back to you, Rose.
Thank you so much. If you want to give us also a feedback, please email us at hshealthypromotion@algonquincollege.com. And as I said, all the chats I recorded, so you can access them at Health Services website under Healthy Promotion Events page. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great, great, great night. And
Thanks.
bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.